What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, March 20th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil. Phil, let's really fingers crossed this episode that we don't lose your audio, because that was such a depressing moment after what we think was one of the best episodes we've ever recorded.
Yeah, I'm not going to say we were in a slump or anything, but we have, I would say, what we've come to realize is our average episode, and they're pretty strong at this point after 2 years of doing this, but I feel like that one was flowing really well, conversation was really good, and then we lost all of it, and it was pretty depressing. If it was just another average episode, it would still be depressing, because it's nice to have both sides of the conversation, but that one felt pretty good when we were done recording, and it was pretty sad to lose it.
Yeah, hopefully, because the numbers haven't come in yet, hopefully we didn't turn a bunch of listeners off by just having a conversation with just myself, it felt like. But the editing after that one, Phil, was a bit tougher, because I literally had to go through the entire blank section where I wasn't talking, just delete it, and then somehow make it look okay that I'm transitioning. I left some of the bits and pieces in where I was like, that's a good point, Phil, and That's an excellent point there, Phil. I left those in just to make it sure that people were noticing that I was actually talking to you at one point. But yeah, it was a bit depressing, but fingers crossed we never have that happen again. 2 years, like 220 episodes or something like that. It's never happened. So hopefully we go another 220 without it ever happening again. But if you want to join in with us in our shell of ourselves at that point, you can follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com, and check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, we'll start with the Buffalo Bandits today. If people are joining us ready for us to rip the team, it's not coming from me. I don't know Phil's opinion on this yet, because we really haven't talked about the game, so I'm just speaking for myself. I am not going to rip the team after this defeat against, once again, the Colorado Mammoth, which they lost 13-8. Kluch and Frazier each had 2. Welcome back, Trace Frazier. McCulley, Byrne, McKenzie, and Buchanan each added 1 of their own. Vince, 32 saves. Shots were 46-45 in favor of Buffalo. Faceoffs 13-12 in favor of Colorado. And the power play, whether people want to admit it or not, was very close. 3 for 7 for Buffalo and 2 for 7 for Colorado. But Phil, let's dive into the actual game itself.
Yeah, before we dive into the game, I have a pre-rant that is, before the game started, I went down to KeyBank Center to pick up one of the jerseys was available. And I called ahead of time to make sure I knew kind of what was going on, what we were looking at, and found out they were being released at 5:30. That's fine, is what it is. That didn't bother me at all. But I also found out they only had 70 total that they were allowing to be sold in small, medium, large. I don't know if, I think it also went to XL. I'm not sure how high
I did see people saying there was XL, but I think XL might have been the max.
So, and you also only had 3 names to choose from: Burns, Smith, and Nanakoke, which even that, if it's a limited run, I'm not too upset. How you don't have McKay, who seems like an Irish name and a staple of the Buffalo Bandits, who's been here forever, as one of those options, seemed like a missed opportunity, and definitely the one I would have gone after if it was available. But I ended up getting a Smith, and luckily I was able to get a large, but there were a lot of people still in line behind me that were left with nothing, and the sign said this was going to be a pretty much one-and-done run. They weren't going to restock the store at all of this jersey. And it's just mind-blowing to me that a team can average close to 12,000-ish fans. I mean, 10,000 plus fans a game for every single home game for the most part. And you're allowing a limited run jersey, which we haven't seen too much of in the last few years. They really don't mix it up other than Tucker Out Lymphoma Night, which is now a tradition for the Bandit Land. And that's a different jersey every single season. So that one, outside of that, though, they don't do too many available jerseys to purchase, and to allow only 70 total to be available for sale, I don't get it. Like, what are you really don't expect to sell if you even put out like 100? You couldn't even hit 100 or 200. You really don't think throughout the entire rest of the season you were going to be able to sell 200 of these special run jerseys? And then on top of that, the 70 that are available are pretty much the same price as a normal jersey, but none of it was stitched. It's all just printed on. So not only are you going to not allow a very large quantity of this jersey to ever be sold, but then you're also going to cut the quality of the jersey in general to just a fancy screen print and not really change the price at all. It's just so frustrating. I know we were kind of talking about this before the event even happened. I kind of told you I haven't gotten a jersey, a new one, in a very long time. Was really looking forward to this one. I liked the way it looked. And I was joking with someone that like, oh, they probably don't have a lot available. That's just what the Bandits do. You know, they have a new, unique something, and they only allow a few of them to be purchased. I had no idea they'd go as little as 70. And even the people that showed up early were waiting in line that whole time. They didn't even have the quantity to fill the people that were there specifically for the jersey, let alone anyone else who showed up at game time or throughout the rest of the year that might have wanted that jersey as well. It's just another missed opportunity. I don't get what they're so scared of with these situations. Just allow the fans that you know are going to be there and would likely buy this jersey to have the opportunity to buy the jersey. Like, what, even if they aren't all sold, what are you missing out on profit? Like $10 for what it costs the team? It's just so ridiculous that you only allowed 70 to be purchased in all different sizes and only 3 names. I just don't get it.
So in my limited research on this, which included just a few things, I was able to gather some information based on the issues with this. From what it sounded like, they ordered these back in November, and there was a manufacturing issue, which it's been going around the world right now where everything's delayed and harder to get everything. So I'm not absolving them from everything wrong, because there's been issues dating years past for, you know, if you want to call it underappreciating the people that have season tickets, which I am part of that, which I would agree that there's not very many perks for being a season ticket holder anymore besides, you know, your normal seat and 10% off at the Sabres store. But I think there's 2 sides to this. I can see the side where it's they only could get in 70, and they were lucky they got it in on time. I believe they only got it in Friday afternoon, I think, or Saturday morning, where they got the shipment in. So I guess in that line of it, we're glad that, and at least lucky that there was at least 70. So that part of it, I can understand. There's issues with the shipping and the making of it and all that kind of stuff. That's the real world we're living in. You can only do so much. All of that is out of your hands. For me, I'll add to that, where I think I was having a conversation with somebody else on the internet about this, where it's, hey, if you got a jersey, congrats. Think of it like a limited edition, where they only had a certain amount of these. So you're one of the very few, like you were saying, that you want a jersey that many people don't have. You want a name that a lot of people don't have. So I guess you can look at it in a positive that way, where you're one of 70 and it's a big collector's item.
I ended up going for it when I was in line. I was like, okay, knowing that there's only 70 available, it's an extremely rare jersey right off the bat. So, I mean, that part of it is exciting. But, like, even when it's advertised, like, why can't that information be out there?
Yes.
Like, say, okay, this is a limited edition jersey. We're going to have one shot at this. If, like, this is your opportunity, it's going to be, like, tell people, like, people shouldn't have to call to find out that they're available at 5:30, that it's a limited run, it's a one and done situation, and we're never going to see this jersey again. Like, that should just be made public. Like, let the people who want to stand in line for 6 hours to go stand in line for 6 hours for a jersey if they really want it. Like, just having to... And again, I called the Sabres store. They were very upfront about it. It's not like they were being secretive or anything. I'm sure they had plenty of calls, and they were very honest, and they were perfectly fine when I called. But just, why is that information not just out there?
That's my second part, where I can understand the limited quantity and everything. I'm not blaming them for that situation whatsoever. It's the real world. Stuff happens, and you can only control what you can control. The thing you can control, though, is the communication that you put out there and being transparent with it, where there's been, and we've been taking shots at the NLL, we've been taking shots at the Bandits and stuff like that, about lack of transparency and lack of advertisement, or whatever you want to call it, marketing. I don't understand why this couldn't have been, shot to an email or put on their social media sites of, hey, this is what happened. We tried to get them in. We couldn't get the fulfilled order. this is what's going to be happening. If you want a jersey, you can start lining up at this certain time. There's going to be only this amount of quantity. There's only this amount of players. It's one per person. And once it's gone, it's gone. That's all we got. Where if they would have done that, I would have had no problem. Yeah, exactly. There would have been no issues from any side. Yes. It's just, you could have resolved so many issues that are going on right now, where I'm not saying that they were trying to hide anything. I'm just saying that they weren't transparent with the fan base, that when you sell how many season tickets, and you had over 15,000 people filling up the KeyBank Center yesterday, or on Saturday, why couldn't this have just been, hey, this is the situation, this is the thing we ran into, out of our control, we tried, but we got this limited quantity, line up at this time, first come, first serve, one per customer, and this is what we got. And I mean, it would have absolved them for so many things, but now they're just causing so much headache outside trying to play catch up on what was the issues. I mean, even going to this one, I don't know if you knew this whole situation of they could only get 70 in and that kind of stuff. It could have solved so many issues just being upfront, saying what the issue is. Hey, we tried. I love the idea. I love the jerseys. I thought it was a huge idea, and I love the idea behind it. I just think they fumbled what they could have controlled by putting out a press release of, hey, this is the issue. This is what happened. But Phil, the jersey, that was actually really cool. I really liked it. I liked the top hat on the S at the end of Bandits. Did not do them any favors in this game whatsoever. I guess we can dive into the game now. It felt like deja vu all over again. It felt like games 2 and 3. Once again, they got out to a nice start, 4-1. First quarter was great, and then it just all crumbled. Second quarter, they lost it 6-2. Then 5-1 in the fourth. They got outscored 6-2 in the second half. Bern tied it actually to start the fourth quarter. It was tied 8-8. And then Colorado would go on to score the next 5. It felt like they couldn't get anything going on the offensive end. And the defense and Matt Vince this was your worst game of the year. We've been praising them nonstop. They had an amazing 6-game run, both the offense and the defense. And it just seems like Colorado just has their number. They just have no match to this. And I have an issue with something down the line here we'll get into, but I'll let you dive into it because I've been talking for a bit.
Yeah, I guess as far as the game goes, it was just pretty lackluster. I mean, I know it was very chippy throughout the entire game, but I don't like, to me, for the offensive side of things, it seems like Ward is just the anti-Buffalo offense. He just seems to have their big number, and just his style of play just is very anti-Buffalo. Like whatever he does, like we talked about it before the game started in our preview, that he has not been having a great season. Their defense hasn't been having a great season. He's still a good goalie, but what he does is make himself big. He really challenges. He goes way outside of the crease, and he's very at the top and makes outside shots near impossible to score on him. And he's a good goalie. But the Bandits were trying to force feed, it seemed, the quick stick kind of goals, which they did get a few in. And I think that is one of the better ways to beat him, because he is so far out of the crease that if you can get it a very quick pass across, he won't be able to be in position quick enough. But I think they almost got too focused on that game plan and just kind of went away from some of the other stuff that they're good at. But one of the things that we said in the previous game was they scored a lot of outside shots, and their inside shots kind of disappeared a little bit, whereas most of the games that we've covered for a while here on this win streak, and going through my article, I remember most of them, the outside shots and inside shots were often very even. It was 5-5, 6-5, whatever it was very even from outside inside. That last one was, I think, 7 outside goals, only 3 inside. And this one, again, you're just not going to be able to score those outside shots on a goalie like Ward. I think they might have gotten 1 or 2 through him, but the way he plays, he's very big, and he plays at the very top of his crease, cuts off a lot of angle and a lot of room, and he pretty much just stands there like a brick wall, and it worked really well. And I just think the offense did not have much of a counterpunch for that. And as far as defense goes, it was kind of a weird game. I mean, Vince did not play very well. I don't think it is that... Yeah, it was pretty obvious to see that it was one of his weaker games. I mean, it is, I guess, frustrating to see coming off of arguably his best game of the entire season, where he played incredible and kept the team in it and was one of the biggest reasons they won against Halifax. And then you go into this game and have one of your weakest performances. So I can definitely wipe it away. I'm not anything against Vince. He's fine. He rebounds extremely well. So, I mean, that's one of the best things about him and this team is that they rebound really well. But the defense just didn't play great. But it was also just strange because Colorado didn't have one player that really took over the game or, really just beat the Bandits by themselves. It was really a team effort of a lot of players chipping in 1 or 2 goals or 3 assists here and a couple goals there. It wasn't really one player that really stood out for their team. So they just played a very solid team offense. But again, the defense and Vince didn't play very well. The offense didn't play very well. It was just overall a dud of a game. And they are 10-3. So I'm not really going to be too concerned about this. You kind of, one of those games you just toss out, move on, and hopefully they can pick themselves back up next game.
Right. It was like the perfect storm where everything that could go wrong went wrong. You had Matt Vince, who was off his game. This isn't a hot take. He just didn't play well. And once again, we are not the people that come after Matt Vince whatsoever. We are understanding of where Matt Vince is in his career and his legacy for the NLL. There's no questioning that. The numbers back up his play, and he's been playing outstanding this year. But he struggled in this one. The defense struggled in this one. The offense couldn't get anything going in this one. It was just a collection of all 3 units just couldn't get anything going against a team that, it's a West Coast team, so the loss only hurts us so much, where you got help from Rochester loss versus Philly. You had Toronto lose. So the standings stayed exactly the same going into this weekend as they were leaving this weekend. So nothing really changed in that aspect of it. Either you're going to lose to a team, lose against a West Coast team because it doesn't affect much, especially when Toronto and Rochester lose. But I'll talk about the offense first. It was nice having Chase Frazier back, but you could definitely tell this is a unit up top that is not used to playing each other or with each other this year yet. Yes, you've played with each other for years and years now. You've been playing with each other with the chaos, but box is a little bit different. They're still getting people's legs under that. I mean, Chase Frazier hasn't played in 6 months, so it's still adjusting to it. They missed a ton of shots on net. A lot of them were going outside, and I think that is also due to the fact that Dylan Ward plays so far out of his crease. But the biggest thing is, and this is another reason why I hated losing your audio, because you brought it up perfectly, and I think I didn't touch on it as much as you did because you summed it up perfectly. The team missed Brandon Robinson this one massively. He was a name that you went out and got for the purpose of a game like this, where he could get inside, he could set those picks where you could screen Dylan Ward so he couldn't see it coming. You can get in closer because of the picks that Brandon Robinson was setting out there. He was setting up other players. This is the type of game where you went out and got a big body guy like him to get in the middle. They couldn't get in the middle. They settled for way too many outside shots, and it killed them in this one. When you have, 6'6" framed Dylan Ward just coming out and taking up the whole net, you have to be pinpoint accurate with your shots, and the offense wasn't like that. And again, I'm not worried about this team whatsoever. They've proven time and time again, back-to-back finals, that this offense can get you to the finals, that this defense can get you to the finals, that Matt Vince can get you to the finals. I'm not worried about it whatsoever. It's just, if you're going to lose a game, at least it was against the West Coast. And then you can move over to the defense. Priolo, massive fight. Loved it. He destroyed Sullivan so bad that he had to get a new jersey, new number, and tape the old person's name on the back of his jersey. But this defense is very different when he's not on the floor. 4 of their 6 goals in the second quarter were when Priolo was in the box. And the first 3 of them were when he was still killing off the fight, which I Sullivan was trying to, start the fight. I think it was Sullivan that he fought with. Let me double check that, Phil. But if you want to double check that while I'm talking, if not, I'll check it after. But the third one or the fourth one was when he was in the box for the penalty. Jeffrey, that was it. I think Sullivan was the McCulley fight. But it's a little concerning when 4 of the 6 goals go in and Priolo wasn't out there. It just shows how important he is to the defensive unit. I just wish that somebody else would have stepped up in that time. And that was pretty much the game right there. The 6 goals in the second quarter were pretty much what, I don't want to say did Buffalo in, because there was a whole second half left, but that run they went on was unbelievable.
One of the bigger disappointments of this game was there were 2 players, one in the offseason, one in the middle of the season, that you went out and got. And for me, both of those players you got to play against a team like Colorado. You already mentioned Brandon Robinson. He is one of the big reasons you went out and got him was because of the championship series. And then Bomberry was the other one that I think a very solid stay-at-home defender that would have been really good in this game. Obviously, he was injured, so it's just, again, both of them injured, nothing the Bandits could do about it. But it's unfortunate to not be able to see what this team looks like with two pretty big additions that you added specifically for this kind of games, to not be able to really get that comparison of what they looked like last year to this year and what the team could look like headed into playoffs if everyone's healthy. It's just unfortunate and a little bit frustrating, and we ended up seeing a little bit more of what the last year's championship game ended up being. And like you said, a lot of this offense is still coming back from injuries, so I think they're a little bit out of whack and out of sync, and you're still missing guys like Nanakoke and some other players, so it was just bad timing, I mean, for a lot of this, and just overall the team played bad. Just everybody, top to bottom, it just didn't look like a good game.
Yeah, the only big issue that I actually have is you brought in bigger body guys on your defensive unit. Like you said, they traded for Adam Bomberry. He's hurt. You can't do anything about it. You have Carter McKenzie who signed in. I thought he had a great game yesterday. And we'll talk about him more later on. That's a little bit of a tease for you, Phil. But my biggest one and the biggest question mark I had, unless something happened in warmups or something later in the week on a Saturday or Sunday like that, I don't understand the scratch of Kellen LeClaire. And if there was an injury or something like that, and that's the reason for him not playing on Saturday, I'll understand that, because I'll come on this show on Friday if somebody can point that out, and I will own it. But to bench a guy like him to be I'll call him a healthy scratch right now because he wasn't on the injury report. That's the biggest question mark for me. You brought in bigger body defensive units so you don't get pushed around back there, and he's one of those guys that you brought in to be that bigger body guy. You traded for him with Calgary. That's the one I don't understand why he wasn't in the lineup. And I think that Nate Kay was in it. It was probably a toss-up between him and Nate Kay. And I think Nate Kay was in it because you were missing Brandon Robinson. He's a bigger body guy in the offensive unit that could try to push his way in there. I can understand that. But a guy like Justin Martin, and this is no shot at Justin Martin whatsoever, it's just he's a smaller guy. He doesn't he can't body up Zed Williams. He got bodied up once or twice down there, where a Kellen LeClaire, he's going to body up Zed Williams, and Zed Williams ain't going to move. That's the biggest question mark I have that I didn't understand, unless he tweaks something after the injury report came out. I mean, they have secondary jobs. They fly in to Buffalo. Other things have happened, so that could have happened. He could have gotten sick. I don't know. But the biggest question mark for me was the benching, or the not playing, I'll call it, not playing of Kellen LeClaire in this one. I'm not saying it would have made a difference because they lost by 5. They got crushed in the fourth quarter. I'm not saying anything like that, but you brought certain guys in to play a team like Colorado a certain way, and he's not playing. That's a big question mark for me. And that's the biggest one that I have a big issue with in this whole game, is the not playing of a guy like Kellen LeClaire.
And yeah, I agree. And again, that's exactly what you just brought up at the end there, is you brought these guys in for this kind of situation. This is the offseason moves you made were to get bigger on defense. And like you said, I love that Carter McKenzie was in. He's a big body out there. He played quite well. But then Bomberry's injured, and LeClaire, we don't know what happened. So I guess we'll just say didn't play. But I mean, LeClaire and McKenzie especially, and then Bomberry are the players you brought in to play against a team like Colorado that's a little bit more physical on offense. And we just didn't get the opportunity to see. And like you said, I don't think they would have been able to make a big enough difference to really win the game. But at the same time, it would have just been nice to see what those players looked like. And maybe the game would have been a little bit closer. And just in general, to see the comparison from this team to last year, to see kind of where the team actually stands as far as a championship run goes. And we just didn't get that opportunity. So hopefully against San Diego, the roster looks a little bit healthier and a little bit different.
Yeah, the only other thing I got in this game, please stop being typical Buffalo fans and blaming everything besides the play on the field. You cannot blame the refs for this one at all. Even if you want to take out the last second penalty that was called on Colorado, it was still 7-6 opportunities on the power play. The game was called very, very even. I think that the refs had too much hand in this one. I think they were calling too much, But again, it goes back to, if you're going to call it consistently. And I thought they did that. And yes, there's going to be missed calls. I think I said this after every game, and hopefully one day we don't have to do this, but we're seeing a ton of people complain about it. And we're not going to address people by name and all that kind of crap, but if it's out there by a lot of people, you got to kind of address it. I'm not blaming the refs for this one. There was one questionable call that I saw, and it was on McKay. One questionable call is not going to make up a 7 or a 5 goal difference. I have no problem with the refs have been doing this year. I thought they've been very consistent. I think there's always going to be times where there's questionable decisions, questionable calls, but that's in sports. They're human beings. They're going to make mistakes. So you can only rag on them so much. You can make fun of the guy that ran out of the tunnel at halftime and he fell flat on his face. That was funny, but I can't blame the refs for this loss. It's not on them. It's on the offense wasn't gelling, defense wasn't doing much, and Vince was not on his game. That's the simple fact of it. That's the reason they lost versus Colorado. It's not because of the refs.
I haven't had a chance to do my referee breakdown, and I'm excited to kind of dig into everything. I might
you got a lot.
Actually for this one I know it's going to take a long time. I might actually do both teams just to kind of see what it looked like on both ends. And like you said, I do think it was called for the most part very fair, but at the same time, in this kind of game, I get it from a league standpoint. If the league ahead of this game kind of told the refs, you guys better call out of penalties and keep it as close as you can because it's going to get chippy with two teams that were just in the championship. But at the same time, to me, I agree with you. I think they were a little bit too quick to the whistle in a lot of these situations. I thought they were in it a little bit too much. I wish they would have just let the players play, which we've seen a lot recently in a lot of recent Bandit games. Calls have been down 1 or 2 or 3 a game, and I love it. I don't like 14 calls combined by two teams. I think that is just way too much involvement by the refs, and it slows the game down, slows the flow down, and it's just not as fun of a game to watch when they are calling that many penalties. I do wonder if simply the league kind of said, keep this game in check. It's going to get pretty rough at times, so I don't know. That's, just speculation, obviously, but 14 penalties combined is just, like you said, too much of a hand in this game. So if there's one criticism before really diving into the calls themselves of the refs, I think that would be it. I just wish they were whistle in the pocket a little bit more.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think the league had anything to do with them making the amount of calls they did, because I don't think the league would want a game called like that, especially a rematch from the finals. I think they want a close matchup like that. I think they want the hard hitting, the chirping after the games and stuff like that. I think that draws more fans.
Fights.
Yes, I think that draws more fans in and more eyes on your sport. So I'd be very shocked if that came down from the league offices. I think it was just the refs trying to control the games because it was so chippy and hard nosed, and that fight right from Priolo at the end of the first quarter. I think that kind of showed how the rest of the game was going to be called, which, again, if you're going to call it that way, call it for both teams. I think they did that. I don't have a problem with it. I haven't rewatched the game. Probably won't, because it was an ugly game, but I'll leave that up to you, and I'll read your article. I'll let you handle that. But I really don't have much of an issue with the rest. The only other thing that I have, and then I'll shut up, how the heck was there only 4 blocked shots in this one by the Buffalo Bandits? They were blocking shots like crazy. I don't understand how they were only credited with 4 soakers. And I'm going to start calling them soakers, Phil, because everybody else was calling them soakers on the broadcast. I don't get it. I don't get how there was only 4. There was 10? I don't get the 4 only. They need to figure out, and I know that's been a question mark for a lot of players in this one, is the stat collecting in different arenas. I think they need to take a look at that going into playoffs in the offseason.
Well, we still barely have a stats page, so
that's true.
Can't expect too much from the stats program from the NLL currently. Hopefully they get a whole summer to revamp the entire program and maybe actually give us all the stats for everybody. That'd be nice. So,
Phil, next on the docket is San Diego, and they're one of the hottest teams in the league. I think they're sitting at 9-2, and they, let me pull this up really quick because I got it right in front of me. They've scored 150 goals in just 11 games. Their goals against are lower too. They're a well put together team, and they're one that I had in my preseason prediction of making to the finals. So the one benefit that we got when you're flying East Coast to West Coast is they have to travel to Texas to play Panther City on Friday night, and then they get Buffalo Saturday night. So talk about them also having a cross country. It's more like half country, I guess, but they're also traveling Friday night, getting in probably late Saturday morning, and got to face Buffalo Saturday night. So it's not just Buffalo that's got to be traveling. It's also San Diego, and I guess you can take solace in that.
Yeah, I will. I was going to kind of go off a little bit, but we have a preview episode, so I'll save it. I'll save it for now.
He's saving the rants. So BSC update here. This encompasses the also 2 Sabres games. No buttes, Phil. They're done. So 2067.55 for me, 1828.72 for you. In this Bandits matchup, I scored 29.5. You scored 26, and I thought you did pretty well considering Nanacoke did not play.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. And, I mean, it didn't help that the whole offense was
very true.
Not very good. Not very good.
Very, very true. We got some milestones, though, that did happen even in a stinker and a clunker of this game. Chris Cloutier did pass 200 loose balls for his career. Steve Priolo, he is now tied with Chris Corbeil for 4th all-time in NLL history and caused turnovers. Chase Frazier did play, and he did shoot a lot, which means he did pass Mitch Jones for 7th in Bandits history in shots. Nick Weiss was only 1 loose ball away for 600 for his Bandits career. He would be the 9th to just do it, and he did it. I think he had 7. It's Dane Smith. He only had 4 assists, but that did move him into 2nd all-time in Buffalo Bandits single-season history. Congrats to him. I think he needs to pick up the pace a bit. I think he's right on pace for the 94, but he got some guys right on his tail. And he is in 13th place solo with points on the season. He's up to 98. He's 2 points away from 100.
Which is pretty ridiculous, and I do hope that, he kind of increases those assists a little bit, because I would like to see him break 100 assists for the new record. I think that'd be, it'd be nice. It'd be nice.
Very, very true. Phil, the only other thing we got for the Bandits here, and we pretty much covered it a lot on the last show. Sorry, you only got my side of it, but for this deadline that's coming up at 3 p.m. today for the trades, I guess we were going to address it in this show just in case anything transpired in the Saturday game. For me, it still goes back to, if Brandon Robinson's back for playoffs, I don't think you need to touch this lineup. If he's not going to be back for the rest of the season, I think you need to get another bigger body guy like a Brandon Robinson to help you in the playoffs, because once playoff happens, refs tend to swallow their whistles and they let a lot of stuff go, and you need to be able to get into the center of the defense and get going. So it really comes down to, and we don't know the situation, Brandon Robinson, if he's going to be back for playoffs, I think this roster is just get healthy and jive. If he's not going to be back, I think you need to address that situation and try to move a piece out the door to bring in a piece now to win now, because your championship time is now. It's not 5 years from now, even though it probably still will be. You're a championship contender today, right now. Go out and get that piece, that missing piece, if Brandon Robinson isn't playing.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only thing, I don't think it changes at all. I think exactly what you said, and just some of the injuries that they're currently going through is essentially what you're hoping to get back again in this Colorado game. But I just wonder if this Colorado game they just had, if they watch film and just simply see something that they might want to add based on finally seeing a bit of a very rough game and kind of figure out what went wrong. I think overall, as we just talked about for a very long time, the whole team was just bad. It was just a very bad game. They played bad. I think if they play their A game, it's a lot closer and possibly a win if everyone's healthy. So a lot of it's going to be get healthy, but I do think that Brandon Robinson piece is going to be massive. So if they think he's going to be healthy, you can probably hold on to your team as is and just kind of sit with the additions that you've already made throughout the offseason and the few trades in season. But outside of that, if Brandon Robinson's not going to be back, I agree with you. I think they got to get at least one more piece on offense that's a bigger body guy to move some people around. And I know the righty side is very crowded, so I don't think you'd be able to do it for both sides, but that'd be the other interesting thing, is if they would do the same for the right side. I know Nanacoke is a bit of that player over there as well, so I think they would just want to get him healthy and kind of make him that Brandon Robinson-esque type player on that right side, but I don't know, it'd be interesting to see if they bring someone else in on that side as well. But that right side is very crowded right now.
Yeah, they got 2 guys back, and 1 guy went out the door. I think the Nanacoke is more a paper transaction, because I don't think he was going to be playing in this one. So to make room and avoid having to release anybody or practice squad anybody, besides the Sam LaRue who just went back down, you just put him on the IR for missing a week when he wasn't going to play anyway. So I think, Phil, just get healthy. They got 2 back. One went out the door, and just just get healthy. We've been saying that all season. Just get healthy. So we will talk about the San Diego matchup on our next show. We'll move on to the Buffalo Sabres. It's a big day in franchise history, Phil, and this might be the only good news on the entire show. Devin Levi has signed his 3-year entry-level deal on Friday. Everybody can put down the pitchforks and calm themselves down. He is a member of the Buffalo Sabres. He played in 66 games in 2 years at Northwestern. He went 38, 22, and 6. Well, that's not that great of a record for a superstar. Here's the numbers that actually matter. He had a .942 save percentage and a 1.90 goals against in the 2 years he played. Do you know the numbers? It's insane. Third best NCAA save percentage since 2000. He was goalie of the year, or goalie of the week, and player of the week 7 times. He's a 2-time goalie of the year. 2021, 2022 Hobie Baker finalist. 21-22 college rookie player of the year. 22-23 player of the year. 16 shutouts in 66 games. All those stats came from Charging Buffalo, so thank you for that. I wanted to give a shout out to them because that's where I got all the numbers, but unbelievable prospect he is. And he was a 7th round draft pick, Phil. Think about that. He was a 7th round draft pick.
Do you remember when everybody hated the fact that we got a goalie for Sam Reinhart?
I was one of them. A first and a goalie, and that's why I'm here, and Kevin Adams is sitting where he is.
Yeah, that trade is starting to look more and more impressive, and if he ends up being this good at the NHL level, I mean, that would be just mind-blowing because that's record-breaking. But if he's anywhere near this good at the NHL level and simply becomes the Sabres franchise goalie for years to come, that trade looks absolutely incredible because goalie is obviously one of the most important positions and something the Sabres have been missing for a very long time. UPL is struggling a little bit, and he's coming along. He's still, I would say, earlier in his development than he seems because of the injuries he's gone through, so I think he still has a ways to go in his basic development. I don't think he's just ready to be a team's number 1 goalie, but with Levi sitting behind him, he's going to have a lot of pressure, and I think Levi has kind of enjoyed slow playing his career despite how well he's kind of done. He really likes kind of developing slowly and making sure he's doing everything right and comfortable making that next step. So I think he will probably sit in the AHL at least 1 year. Obviously, he's not going to be on the Sabres next year, but in general, I think he's going to just want to develop a little bit. Obviously, it's up to the team, but if he has a mind-blowing AHL season, which I think is possible, given just what he has the ability to do, I think he could put a lot of pressure on UPL a lot sooner than maybe some people think.
Yeah, based on the 2 games we're going to be talking about here in just a second, I think he's going to get some games here in Buffalo towards the end of the season here. They got 13 games to go. They are falling further and further out of the playoff race. I think they might actually give him some shots here in Buffalo just to give him a bit of a taste. He's already going to be burned in that first year of the entry-level deal, so he's going to have 2 years after this. I'm not counting him out being on the Sabres next year. I think it'll be a very big long shot that he's going to start on the Sabres next year. It almost never happens with a young goalie like this. He's only, 20, 21 years old. It's very, very unlikely he's going to be starting with the Buffalo Sabres next year, but like you said, what do the Sabres have right now? They're struggling in goaltender immensely. They have a 41 going on 42-year-old Craig Anderson who has been playing very well for the Buffalo Sabres. They got a Comrie guy who can't stay healthy and he's not been very well, and a UPL who lets in 3 to 4 goals on average every game now. So they don't really have much in the way of superstar goaltending. It's basically for them right now, Levi or bust. Because I can't see them adding any goaltender next year with Levi going to be in the farm system next year, right now moving forward. So I'm hoping and praying with everything in me that he turns out to be the goalie franchise for this team. And if he doesn't, we're in deep, deep doo-doo.
Yeah, I know they have... I forgot his name, and he's a long ways away because they just drafted him.
Yeah, the guy drafted in the 2nd round, yeah.
Yeah, the top international goalie of the last draft class they did draft. So, I mean, it's not him or nothing in a way, but at the same time, it's him or nothing. I mean, those college stats are absolutely ridiculous. And
Linnanen.
He's going to go down as one of the best college goalies of all time. So, hopefully, he can just translate that into the AHL and then the NHL. And like you said, he's still extremely young. I mean, he's obviously skipping out on his senior year of college hockey. So
Junior
he's still
year.
going. What?
Junior year. He was only a sophomore.
Oh, yes. He was only a sophomore. So he's missing junior and senior year of hockey. So, I mean, he's going to be young. He's going to take a little bit to develop, but with everything and his work ethic and his abilities and everything he's showing, he could be making a push a lot sooner than later. And at the same time, like you just said, what do the Sabres have to lose with? I mean, you don't want to rush his development. I mean, that's the number one thing with a player like this, with how incredibly he's coming out. You don't want to just see those stats and just kind of force him through the system to kind of rush his development. I don't think they will. And I think they understand how valuable of an asset he is for the Sabres. So I think they will likely slow play his development as much as possible, but I'm sure he will have the talent and ability to force the issue and kind of start pushing his way up, hopefully pretty quick. And like you said, maybe we'll see him at the end of the year this year, because why not?
Yeah, why not? And it's officially, it's no longer Levi watch time. It's Ryan Johnson watch now. And his team, Minnesota, is facing Canisius. Minnesota's the number 1 seed, and I think they kick off the playoffs on Thursday. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's Thursday. So it's one and done in that playoff. So if he's out, look for the Ryan Johnson signing. I think he's got to sign by August to be a Buffalo Sabre. Otherwise, he's a UFA. And all indications are he's going to be signing with Buffalo. Everything sounds like it's good coming out, all the rumors and everything, even though he is a senior and he can go to UFA status after the season if he doesn't sign with Buffalo by August. But it's Ryan Johnson watch time. So we'll move on to the games to talk about, even though I really, really don't want to. It's frustrating, Phil. I know they weren't expected to make playoffs, but I wasn't expecting a terrible run to the end of the season. Philly Friday, 5-2. How do you lose to Philly 5-2? I turned the game off. I'll be honest. I turned it off.
As you should.
Olofsson scored both of them. Whoop-de-doo. Shouldn't have been even in the lineup. Anderson, 17 of 22 saves. Make a save. Shots, 38-22 for Buffalo. And then Sunday, once again, didn't want to watch. Watched a bit and then turned it off. They lost 7-0. Second time they've let Boston score 7 on them. No goals to talk about. UPL, 18-25 saves. Make a save. Shots, 26-25 for the Sabres. Their record sits at 33, 30, and 6. I guess we'll start with Philly, even though I just want to skip on and do the next segment because this is ugly and I in a bad mood.
I like the potential new soundbite you have, though, of make a save. I like that. That's a good one.
Just going to have to record that and just play it so I don't have to say it all the time now.
Every single time they score, which is 7 against Boston every time. Yeah, I don't know. This is gross. It's just real gross. I mean, we kind of looked, we had a little bit of hope after everything, and we were trying to kind of pump the brakes even on our own hope, but they were still in it after the last podcast, and going through this, we were like, all right, you got to get at least 3 or 4, take care of Philly, hopefully take Boston to overtime, something like that, and then, like you said, that Philly game, what the heck? You can't lose to a team like that when you're in a playoff race. I don't care if you're the youngest team in the NHL or what's going on with your team. You just can't lose that game. It's just embarrassing I don't know. There's no words for that. And then, like you said, they fell out Boston. Even worse, Boston's obviously light years ahead of the Sabres, let alone the entire NHL this year. But again, just 7-0 looks ridiculously embarrassing. And a lot of times we've said that this team comes off an unacceptable loss and has a decent rebound. Well, this is just 2 terrible, terrible games, and the end of their season has just completely fallen flat, which is just depressing after the year that they had.
Yeah, they got outscored 13-2 12-2. I can't do math because I'm turning red because I'm just over this team right now. It's the reverse of last year, where I was sick of watching the team early in the season and they came on hot and I didn't want the season to end. Now I'm just, they're limping to the finish line, and we can tie both these games together because both of them were ugly. Goalies didn't make the saves. Your defense as a whole, not just the 6 defensive players out there, but the whole defensive unit of the forwards getting back to, they don't know how to play defense, Phil. It's unbelievable how bad this team is, where they're just caught watching the play so often. And I understand they're young, they're going to learn, but they're 69 games into a season. When does the learning start for that? I understand Granato's philosophy in this season was be free, don't be afraid to make mistakes, get the mistakes corrected, go out and score, make it an entertaining game that the fans want to come and watch. You've been able to do that on the offensive end. You're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. But you gotta play some kind of defense. I understand that the goalies are sometimes getting hung out to dry. But you also need a goaltender to bail you out sometimes. That used to be UPL. That used to be Anderson. Now nobody's making any saves. Now it's just frustrating watching a game where Philly puts up 5 on you. Boston, yes, they're an unbelievable team, but they put up 7 on you. This is unacceptable. I understand that this team is so young and they're still growing, but they got a ways to go. How do you just watch other players get wide open on the offensive unit for them, and you're just watching, you're reaching, you're not moving your feet? This might be in the worst game for Greenway, since he's been a Buffalo Sabre. Where was the effort? I mean, Cousins had to go out there and fight him. That shouldn't be Cousins' role to go out and fight a guy to stand up for his teammates that was just ragdolling Dahlin after the play. The team has gone 2-7-2 since that Washington win when they were, right off that 5-6 run. It's unacceptable these last 2 games. The team has to go 10-2-1 in the final 13 just to get to 93 points and have a prayer. My other biggest issue here, and I don't know if you want to jump in here before I get into my thing. Do you have anything else to these before I jump into my last lineup decision?
No, they were terrible games of hockey, and the team is just playing awful to end the season. That seemed pretty promising at one point, and now it's just hard to watch, and you just kind of, like you said, want the season to end so we can get some hope and some excitement back, looking forward to another season like usual.
Yeah, my only other issue here, and I've been the Granato cheerleader since the beginning. He got turned into interim when Ralph Kruger got fired. I don't know why it took Ralph Kruger so long to be fired, but he had a Ralph Kruger moment, and this is the biggest insult I can throw at him, is being related and associated with Ralph Kruger, the worst NHL hockey coach of all time. And that's not a joke. There's not even a close runner-up. It's him, and by far. Why are you benching Tyson Jost and JJ Peterka for Vinny Hinostroza and Victor Olofsson? Yes, Victor Olofsson had the 2 goals. Whoop-de-stinkin-do. One of them went in with 0.4 seconds left on the clock on the power play. Anybody could have put that one in. He whacked it out of midair. Whoop-de-stinkin-do. That's what saved him from getting grilled at the podium, because he could just say, hey, the guy I put in scored there only 2 goals. Whoop-de-stinkin-do. His excuse was he wanted to keep them playing because you can't keep them out too long. Where was this with Rasmus Asplund, Phil? The guy that got one of the votes for the best defensive forward in the league last year. Where was that? I mean, they traded him out the door for a 7th round pick because he wasn't getting any start. This is the time where you want to see your young guys grow. JJ Peterka's rookie. He wasn't going through a slump like he was before, where you refused to bench him and let him sit up in the press box for a game or 2. He was on like a 5 points in the last 7 game streak. He was the only one really generating 5-on-5 opportunities. Why are you benching guys that are doing so good, unless this is Kevin Adams saying, hey, get these 2 guys in the lineup. Get Vinny Hinostroza one. I don't understand. Why are you benching Tyson Jost against Boston, who is that grinded big boy team? Tyson Jost is perfect for that side. I don't understand that. This is one of the worst times I've ever been upset, like visibly mad at Don Granato for a decision that he's made. And it's been growing. He's been making bad decisions the last month or 2. And it's just mind-boggling. Why are you benching Jost and Peterka for a guy that's not doing anything in Victor Olofsson and a Vinny Hinostroza who was just down in the Amerks? I don't understand it, Phil. I understand you want to get guys playing 2 games. What? Phil, I don't get it. It's simple decisions like this that make me pull out the limited hair I have left.
I do have one question for you.
Yep.
Would you like to move on from the Sabres?
Please. Let's do this. BSC update. You scored 8. I scored 6.5. Are you making any changes to your team?
No.
Good. I'm not either. I'm done with this team on this segment. Wildcard watch. They're falling. They're falling quick. They're 6 points out of Pittsburgh. I'm not even going to go over the numbers because they're so far back. They're 5 back of Florida, who's in the 3rd seed. They're 8 back of New York, who's in the 1st seed. They're 6 points back of Pittsburgh, and they're got limited games in hand. The max they can get out is 98. So, like I said, they have to go on a 10-2-1 stretch down the way. They got Nashville on Tuesday. That's the only game we're thankfully going to have to talk about because they're going to probably get the doors blown off of them versus Nashville. Oh, Phil, I'm just sick of the Sabres right now. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and guess what? It was a train.
If they do tank, they could finish
bottom 10. Don't use that word anymore.
If they continue to struggle as much as they are, they could finish as a bottom 10 team and, kind of sneak into that lottery. So
Connor Bedard, if you want, that would be amazing. I don't think the NHL will ever allow it. I think if us, Arizona, any of those, Columbus, any of those teams pop up the lottery ball, I think they're going to take that lottery ball, look around the room and said, this didn't happen. Put it back in there and rerun it.
I wouldn't doubt it.
But, that's all we got for the Sabres. We do have a Bills segment, but we're running a bit longer, and I know what's on the docket for Friday, so we're going to push the free agency segment for the Buffalo Bills to our next show because we'll only have a preview for San Diego and San Diego's West Coast team, so it's not a huge, big-time important game. I know every game in the NLL is important, but it's a West Coast team, so it has a little bit less significance. And we only got a Sabres game to talk about. It has
major significance, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on Friday. Little teaser from Phil. There you go. But we got our last segment here. MVP. Do you know how difficult it was to pick an MVP for this week, Phil? Nobody did anything. Nobody did. I'm not picking Victor Olofsson.
Yeah, but the player, little sneak peek that you ended up going with, had the luck of the Irish on their side, as did their last name.
Yeah, we had to go with Carter McKenzie because I thought he played very, very well. This is not a shot at him. It's just you would expect with 2 Sabres games and a Bandits game that there would be somebody else to step up, but nobody did, and Carter McKenzie did. So there you go. His first goal as a Bandit, it was a huge goal, end of the first quarter to get them the 4-1 lead that they had that they would soon lose. And he also had 2 loose balls, a block, which I think is a bad stat because I think he had more than that, and a caused turnover. I thought he had a great, great game. I think he stepped up in the absence of Adam Bomberry and the non-playing of Kellen LeClaire and stepped up into that big-bodied role, and I thought he played very, very well for a very young player.
Yeah, I think he's coming along really well. I was really excited when the Bandits ended up acquiring him in the offseason, and he didn't get a lot of chances early on. He was kind of in and out of the lineup, healthy scratch. And just kind of as the Bandits were figuring out their roster and injuries, he was kind of in and out. But I think he's been a little bit more in than out. He's been a little bit more of the staple of the defense. And like you said, he's that big body defender. And I think he is coming along really well and really making a name for himself on the defensive end for the Bandits. And I do like him out there. So I think he deserves the MVP. And congratulations to him on his first goal as a Buffalo Bandit. When they first announced that it was a player's first goal in a Bandits uniform, I was like, who on the Bandits currently hasn't scored their first goal? Like, who are we still waiting for? So great to see McKenzie get a goal. And again, lovely Irish last name. Had the luck of the Irish. Most of the Bandits did not, but he played a really good game.
Yeah, he's one that I don't think had a celly planned, because the celly was just kind of running into the boards and kind of crashing into it.
It's a default. Like when you're playing NHL, right, yep, and you just hit like X, that is a default celly. And it works. It works.
It was a good one. You could see the enjoyment in the, I don't want to call it relief, but maybe shock on his face that he put one in, because defenders usually don't put him in. You could tell, like Bryce Sweeting, he had that celly lined up for years waiting for that opportunity when he put one in. You could tell Carter McKenzie's still a young player and is like, I'm never going to score, so he didn't have one planned. And that was his celly, is just running into the boards but kind of like crouched down so it didn't look as graceful as it probably could have been. We'll see if he gets another opportunity down the road. But Phil, anything else you want to add to this episode before we shut it down? And work week, somehow, at least we only got one Sabres game we got to go through.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to move on from this episode. This weekend, it was a pretty big letdown overall. So we're ready to put it in the past, new week, and start fresh.
The only bad part is today is the first day of spring, the worst season on the face of the earth. Wish you could shoot it to the moon. So it just keeps going downhill for me, Phil. Bandits lost, Sabres lost too. They continue to fall, and now the worst season of all time. Gross. I'm not looking forward to this next 2 months of, like we said, car wash for dogs. Need it. But Phil, on our next show, we got the Bandits versus San Diego preview. I'm actually looking very much forward to watching that game because both teams, when they're on the money, this could be like a 25-26 game. It honestly could be that high scoring game because there's so much talent on both offensive units. We got the Sabres game versus Nashville to talk about, and we should have time, so we'll go over what's been happening with the Buffalo Bills in free agency. We are not the top Bills podcast. We just pretty much do that in the Sabres because we love talking about them. We know there's plenty of other podcasts you can be listening to, but because we love talking about them, let's add it to our show. So we'll talk about that on our next episode as well, including another riveting segment of PK's Hot Corner. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com where you can read all of Phil's reaction articles that he does for the Buffalo Bandits, including his referee hot corner and referee corners. Is that what you call it? I can't remember.
Yeah, the referee corner.
Referee corner. There's going to be a lot of them. So make sure you settle in and buckle up and don't do it while you're driving with your buckle, I guess. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.